Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Countdown. There are just 3 weeks to go until the action tips off in London, and we've got yet another very big show for you. We're going to have all the news from the Boomers camp up on the Gold Coast, what's been happening up there. We're going to have some results from around the globe. We're going to talk about the gliders and also the rollers, plus the Opals. They have jetted off to Europe to try and finalise their preparations on what they hope will be a successful assault on a medal in London. Joining me in the studio in just a moment is going to be two-time Olympian, a couple of medals as well, former WNBL MVP Michelle Brogan. Coming up a little bit later on in the show, we're going to have former Boomers coach and NBL Hall of Fame legend Barry Barnes, also as part of the Countdown conversation. And Jayco's player profile of this week will be with one of the Opal stars, Belinda Snell. Plus, we're going to have, as I say, all the information and details on how to get tickets for the rollers and gliders matches coming up in Sydney in the next week or so. But without any further ado, I'm going to welcome my special guest, Michelle Brogan. It's great to have you as part of Countdown.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure. How have you seen the Opals preparations? I know you were at the big game at Hisense Arena a couple of weeks ago, and how does it feel as a former Opal to look at this team as they're about to embark upon this wonderful journey?
I mean, one thing, it was just great to have the Opals and Boomers playing here in Australia.
Yep.
And another was that there were so many older, retired Opals and Boomers there at the game. So fortunate but unfortunate, I didn't get to watch all the game and actually study the game because I was catching up with so many people that I hadn't seen for a long time. But thoroughly enjoyed it. It was good to see the Opals just before they go away. It
seems to me, and I guess, big events like that one and also, the WNBL final series and things like that. And plus, the same with the men. I know they had the farewell lunch a week or so ago with the Boomers squad. The comradeship and the mateship that exists between the former Boomers and the Opals, and even with the groups of today, it's really something pretty special.
It is good, and Basketball Australia do a great job in making sure that retired players are still in the loop of what the Opals and the Boomers are doing these days, and it's really good to all come together from, I knew 60-year-olds that were there at the game, and there was young girls that I know that will be in the Opal squads for the further years and stuff as well. So it was really, really exciting and good.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, the draws have been finalised for London, so we now know who the Boomers and the Opals are going to be taking on. The Boomers, it was always going to be tough. They're going to be playing Brazil, Spain, China, Great Britain and Russia. For the Opals, they're going to be playing Great Britain and France and Brazil, who we knew. Great Britain, Brazil and Russia, who we knew. They're also playing Canada and France. Let's think about the Boomers first. I mean, it's just, the depth is just extraordinary. I think in that group of 5, there's only one nation, being the host nation, Great Britain, who's ranked outside the top 13 nations in the world. It's just so tough.
It's very, very tough for the men, and unfortunately for them, it is a gold medal game every game they play. And for them to make top 4 is going to be very, very hard. And it's not out of their realm, but it is going to be a lot harder than it is for the Opals.
With the girls, we know that they would go into them. They would go into all of those matches confident. We know they've just beaten Brazil 3 times, even though it's early, still in their preparations. We know that the Tom Ma-led Great Britain will be competitive, but you would expect that they would win that game. The Russian, Canada likewise. France, you never quite know. They can be a bit of a dark horse, and the Russians we know are going to be strong. I mean, how will Coach Graf approach that pool? One match at a time, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And like anything, you take it one day at a time. You have the ultimate goal, but you do take it one game at a time. And I think they have had a great preparation. They've had most of their players, or all their players here in Australia, which has been fantastic, which has not been like previous Olympics. They also have toured and played against a lot of these teams and seen a lot of these teams, so they've got scouting and tape and things like that. And Graf will undoubtedly make sure that the Opals are so prepared for every game. That's unquestionable, and I think it's mainly just how our girls are taking their own game and their own team concepts and how they're playing together. I don't think the focus will be as much on the other teams, especially when it comes to the pool initially, to be on themselves.
Is there a danger, bit of a random one for you, is there a danger in being too prepared sometimes? Is it, can you be too focused on, almost too regimented in some circumstances, and you sort of lose on occasions, the flow of the moment or the feel of the moment, and maybe even, not necessarily the enjoyment, but the pressure perhaps builds up a little bit too much from that?
I hear what you're saying, and I think that's probably where the preparation wouldn't be necessarily as focused on the other teams.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because you do your focus on the other teams and you see what they run. But if you go into it too much, you forget about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And literally most of these teams have to beat us. And the only way they can beat us is because we've beaten ourselves,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
I think, yes, there will be focus on the other teams, but I think there'll be a lot of focus just on us and just what we're doing and what the Opals girls are doing.
Now, the Boomers, as I said before, they're in camp on the Gold Coast. Their star forward/centre David Anderson has finally joined the squad after his European commitments, which is fantastic. The Boomers are also going to have some final warm-up matches before the Olympics. They're going to be playing Angola, France and Spain before they head into the village. Those last-minute preparations are so vital, aren't they?
They are, and getting David back into the squad and the group would be, I mean, he's going to play a huge role in this team, I believe.
Yep.
Yet to be seen, of course, but he's internationally known. He's not just from the point of view of he's played overseas, but all the European players know him and they respect him. So I think for him coming back into the Boomers and just getting that team camaraderie thing happening is a bonus for them.
Some great results for our underage teams during the week as well. The Stankovic Cup is generally a tournament for the senior team, but with our senior men's team, the Boomers, already off preparing for the games. The Basketball Australia's essentially sent an under-21 side, and they lost to China in the final. So they've come second in the Stankovic Cup Invitational Tournament, which is a pretty great result. Plus the World Under-17 Championships for men have been held, and the Aussie boys came second to the USA. They were comfortably defeated in the final. Dante Exum was the best player for the Under-17 boys, but to come second in that tournament, Michelle, it took us back to some earlier tournaments. I know that the guys won, I think, the under-21 men in 1997, had a gold medal in their tournament in there.
Yes.
And then your under-21 team back in
93.
I didn't want to say it, but
That's
you know,
all right. I'm not embarrassed. Everyone gets older.
I'm just trying to think. It was with you, Jenny Whittle, Joe Hill, Christy Harrower, Carla Boyd, some of the Opals to come out of that team. It's a wonderful springboard, isn't it?
From my junior team, there were a lot of Opals. I mean, there was also Michelle Cleary. Today, Michelle Chandler back then. So she's been an Olympian. So there's been a major step from our junior team, my day, to the Opals, and let's hope that the guys continue with that, and that's a great. Coming second is phenomenal. That is really, in the men's competition, it's so much harder. And for them to do that is a credit to Basketball Australia. It's a credit to their coach and to their players and the junior programs and what Australia are doing developing their players.
Absolutely. One player who's at the other end of her career spectrum is Tully Bevilacqua. A couple of times Tully's been to the Olympics. She's a great favourite of, I think, anybody that's watched the sport in Australia. You former teammate of yours. She's going to be retiring at the end of this WNBA season with the San Antonio Silver Stars. How do you look at a comrade, somebody who you've played with, a former teammate? You reflect on their career or your own career? And
Tully's career is quite interesting because she didn't really go through what would see as be the normal process, going to the AAS and then making junior teams and then senior teams and senior squads and stuff. Tully made the senior team when she was in her towards the end of her career. So she had played all her life trying to break into these teams and not quite there. And it wasn't until towards the end of her career that she finally broke in and made it. So she's got a wonderful, wonderful story. Had to go overseas to even get recognition and to get that experience. And she's done a great job at the age that she is. To be playing in the WNBA, I take my hat off to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful player, Tully, and a big fiend for social media too. So I reckon that we've got our Twitter handles and things. Tully should send us a tweet and make sure she's doing okay, checking out the countdown episodes as well. Now, it's not just about the men and the women who are going off to London for the Olympic Games. There's also the Paralympic Games, which are coming just after that as well. And the rollers and the gliders, massive medal chances. We know about that. The rollers, red-hot favourites for gold in the men's, and the women off a bronze medal in Beijing, also a chance to medal again and perhaps even bring home the gold. Next week, they're going to start the World Challenge event in Sydney. Make sure you get along and watch that if you possibly can. Ticket Direct is where you will get your tickets from. And I'm not sure how much of the wheelchair game you've seen, Michelle, but having commentated it a couple of years ago, the skills that these men and women have are just extraordinary. And I love it as well. You occasionally see a game, a precursor to a WNBL match, a curtain raiser or something, and the women are competing with the men as well, and it's a wonderful community as the able-bodied is.
I've actually got into a chair. A friend of mine was in the gliders a few years ago and verging on the teams and stuff, and so she got me to come out and play and get into a chair, and It is physical, it is hard. You know, the biggest thing with able body is we say use your legs when your shot is short. Well, of course you can't when you're in a chair, and I'm trying to shoot. It's exciting, it's fun, and it's actually a really good experience for able people to see what they go through, and it was a good experience for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. And of course, Marion Stewart, who was our manager for 20 plus years with the Opals, is actually the manager, so I still keep in contact with her and know how the gliders are doing. Yeah,
well, it's wonderful stuff. If you are in Sydney, make sure you check out the Basketball Australia website for the details and jump on Ticket Direct to get your tickets to the World Challenge. The rollers and the gliders playing some of the best sides in the world in their preparation for the London Paralympics. All right, it's now time for our Jayco Player Profile, and this week we look at one of the Opals who perhaps might have a slightly different role in London. She's been a starter for many years and maybe might be just coming off the bench to give a bit of offensive impact to that second unit. One of the WNBL stars and one of the Jayco Opals' very best players, Belinda Snell.
Going into her third Olympics, Belinda Snell is shaping to have a different role this time around. The plucky veteran, who has both WNBA and European experience, intends to share her international wisdom with some of the younger Jayco Opals.
So yeah, it's a lot different, and just I'm just trying to help the young girls in preparation for their first Olympics, and let them know some of my experiences from past Olympics and what the do's and things not to do kind of in the village, and just try and show the young girls some experience.
Electing to come back from Europe for the 2011-12 WNBL season, Belinda Snell never missed a beat playing at home, being awarded a spot on the WNBL All-Star 5.
I really enjoyed playing back in Australia and playing with the Sydney University Flames. It was great to be back and enjoying my basketball again, and just playing with great friends in Sydney, and Alicia Poto and Lauren King. It was great to be able to play with them, and it was really enjoyable, and it was a lot of fun being back for an Australian summer.
Reaching her first Olympics in 2004, London hopes to bring many more emotions and memories to this Jayco Opal.
And I still remember the first time I ran out in Athens for my first game at the Olympics, and just the whole emotion, you're running out representing your country for the first time at an Olympics. And I remember Men at Work, I Come From the Land Down Under, that song was playing as we ran out onto the court, and just that whole warm-up was pretty much a blur to me. Like, I was so emotional, and it's a huge honour, and something that you remember for the rest of your life.
Great to catch up with Belinda Snell there as part of our Jayco Player Profile series. But now it's time for a lot of people's favourite part of the show. We're going to put my co-host Michelle Brogan under some pressure. It's the Peak Sports Countdown Beatdown. So Michelle, I know as an avid viewer of Countdown each and every week, as you have been, you'll be aware of this part of the show where the 24-second clock goes up and the pressure is on you. We've got some people, some of our viewers have tweeted in some questions using the hashtag Beatdown to Basketball Australia or the Boomers or the Opals Twitter handles. And we're going to come to you now with a couple of those questions. So I hope you've got your game face on.
Oh,
a few nerves, yeah, perhaps. I'm not
game
quite
face,
sure.
maybe not.
All right, let's focus on the Opals first up. Okay. And if you are planning your strategy for coaching the Opals, what's going to be the biggest focus? Getting your interior play or your perimeter play right?
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Let me think. Oh, it's already counting down. Okay. I would have to say for the Opals, one of their advantages is the fact that they can play inside-outside. So we don't have, other than Lizzie, who can still come outside, I think the rest of them are so flexible. And also our little players outside can post up inside. So our flexibility, I would say, would be our major asset.
And would it be, very well done too, with 1 second on the shot clock, you've got that off. So that was very, very nice. The follow-up to that would be, I mean, how different, and referring back to what we were saying before about your preparations, for each and every match. Yeah. I mean, you're throwing different looks at different teams as well to try and catch them off guard, or is it all about absolutely focusing on what you're going to do best?
A bit of both, which is obviously the standard answer and a way out of really, I think the quarterfinal is your major game. To me, that is your major game. If you don't win that quarterfinal, you're not going to be playing for a medal.
Yep.
So that would be where I think Graffy and the coaching staff would be looking at to make sure they set themselves up in their rounds to get an easier, you play the 4th place in the other team, and that would be their major goal through the rounds, I think, to make sure they end up top and then they don't play the US in the quarterfinal or something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely team camaraderie, and that's what all these pre-season games are for, and pre-tournament games are for, is team camaraderie, making sure she's got her clicks and what she knows is going to work for her and her game strategy, I guess.
Well answered. Very good. Well, no, it's very nicely done. Absolutely. And you know what? We might actually have to do at the end of this show. We're going to get you to sign the basketball because this is, I know, it's a bit of a moment. Here we go. We've got this basketball here. We might get you to do that a little bit later on. Okay. But all of our co-hosts on Countdown so far have been invited and have actually accepted, Michelle. So hopefully you won't decline to sign the basketball. Make sure you check out the auctions website. The details are on the screen below through Basketball Australia, where you can have your chance to bid on this basketball, which is signed by some of the greatest players who have ever donned the green and gold of Australia. So there you go. Absolutely. Oh, it's a pleasure.
3 weeks to go.
3 weeks to go. 3 weeks to go. So we've got Mark Bradkey coming up next week as well on Countdown. But we'll have more on that a little bit later on. But right now, it's time to go to the final segment of our show today, the Countdown Conversation, brought to you by Sporting. All right, the final segment of Countdown today, as I mentioned just a moment ago, the Countdown Conversation brought to you by Spalding. And of course, Michelle Brogan's going to be answering a couple of the hard questions in just a moment. But joining us on the line is a man who coached the Boomers for 7 or 8 years. He is a legend, the Australian Basketball Hall of Fame. Barry Barnes is a member, and it's our privilege to have him on Countdown. Barry, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Look, it's our pleasure. We've just been thinking about, obviously, the Boomers' preparations for the London Games and wondering what have you made of them so far? Have you been able to catch much of their preparations and have a chat to members, people in and around the team?
Yes, I went down to Melbourne for their games down at Geelong and spent some time with the team and spent some time with Brett. And I was very impressed with the way the team has come together, and I'm sure they're going to do well.
What do you think the three, and every week in this section of Countdown, and to you, Michelle, as well, we focus on the number of weeks there are to go until the London Games. There are only 3 weeks to go until the games tip off. So, Barry, firstly to you, I'll ask you, what do you think that the 3 biggest reasons are why the Boomers can have a successful London campaign and potentially even win a medal?
Well, first of all, I think the coach and the staff that's been put together is excellent. I think Brett's knowledge of the experience that he's had with the NBA and the knowledge that he has of the players, the European players that play in the NBA. And this will be his third Olympics. So he knows what it's about, and he's very, very thorough. It was just going down. Couldn't be more impressed at the way that he's assembled this group, and the commitment that he's put towards this group, and the attitude now that the group plays with. There's an attitude about the group that you've got to be impressed with, and I think the addition to add Luke, to put Luke Longley in there to come along to the camps and work with the younger players. I think that's a great coup and a great compliment to Brett to be able to use Luke in that capacity. And with Marty and Andre, 2 very experienced coaches. I think the coaching staff is great, and they've done a very good job.
It also I'll just cut in there, Barry and Michelle. I'm not sure how well you know Luke or would have spent a bit of time with him over this. He also seems like the sort of character who can bring a bit of levity to the group as well. He sat in that chair a few weeks ago and he was
towered over you.
Yeah, he towered over me for one thing, but also just his personality seems to be able to be somebody who could really lift a team out, some dark moments.
Luke has been there and done that.
Yeah.
He is a wonderful ambassador for Australian basketball, and I'm so happy, like you, Barry, very happy to hear that he's been a part of the
Boomers,
the Boomers, and give his knowledge and experience to these young kids coming through. It's only going to be for the better.
And Barry, maybe one or two other quick reasons you think the Boomers might be able to have a successful London campaign.
I think the players now, and Michelle will certainly relate to this, I think there comes a time in basketball, a time of maturity, and I think, like our average age is about 25. Every player on that roster now has got some international experience. You've got 4 of them have been to Olympics before. You've got 7 players that have played constantly now in Europe. You've got 2 that have played in the NBA, Mills and Anderson, and you've got 3 very experienced players from the NBL. So, I think it's time. I think this group is at a nice, mature time to really take on whatever's thrown at them. So I think the players are ready. Very comfortable looking at the group that's been put together.
And Michelle, I guess the same question to you. I mean, the Opals obviously have their sights. The Jayco Opals have their sights set right at the top, for a gold medal. What do you think the 3 reasons are that they might be able to challenge for and potentially even snag that medal?
Look, I don't want to put any added pressure on the Opals anyway, because for the last 4
enough,
Olympics, they've won a medal, which has been great. I do believe we will win a medal.
Yeah.
What colour that is yet to be seen. I would say 3 keys for them to be successful and possibly bring home that gold. The first one is they would have to, which is unquestionable, play at their best.
Yep.
It's world stage. In that arena, you can't not play at your best. So you have to. The second thing I think would be they need to get significant contribution from the bench. And the third, and probably most important, is Australia, I don't believe, have ever shot well, had a good percentage for a big game. So they need to get out of those 20s and get into the high 40s. And I think, I don't know, memory serves me well, maybe not, is they've been in the mid-20s for the last 2 gold medal games.
And the game against Czech in the quarter-final of the last World Championships too.
And Australia, just traditionally, the Opals have never shot well in that big game, and they've had to grind it out, and hence silver medals. So I think they would be my 3 keys, is obviously play well, shoot unbelievably, and have that significant contribution from the bench.
Hard to fault the logic, Barry, would you agree?
Yeah, no, I think what Michelle's saying, I think unfortunately goes across the board with all our teams. I think with both our teams that shooting is certainly that Achilles heel that we need to be able to produce it in the big games. And again, let's hope they can, because certainly I think the talent is there in both teams to progress through and get that medal, and the girls certainly to take that extra step, because they've been outstanding, in 3 Olympics that they've achieved wonderful results. And I think with the men, I think the third one I felt was that I think the preparation. I think the preparation that Brett's put together is excellent. I think Australians love a challenge, and I think the soft series that we had against Greece, was a soft series, but again it was a good series because it was the coming together of the group. Guys were coming back from Europe, they were coming in and joining the group, and now they go away. They've had 3 camps, Perth, Melbourne, and now they're on the Gold Coast. Then they'll head off to Europe and they'll play in a few tournaments, and they'll play against the best, which is excellent, because as I said, Aussies like to lift for special occasions, and they put on the green and gold singlet and they become something special. And I think they'll play. I think they've got to play Spain twice, which is the silver medalists from the last Olympics. They play Brazil. So they're getting to, Brett's put together a nice preparation, which will get them ready to go for when the curtain goes up.
The thoughts of Barry Barnes, OAM, Basketball Australia Hall of Fame member and the coach of the Australian Boomers for the period from 1993 to 2000. Barry, thank you very much for being our special guest as part of the Countdown conversation brought to us by Spalding here today.
Certainly my pleasure. Thank you.
Barry Barnes there. And thank you very much to you, Michelle Brogan. It's been wonderful to have you in and get your insights into the Jayco Opals and also the rest of Australian basketball and the preparation.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. But before we go, we've got to thank our sponsors as well here on Countdown. The Australian Sports Commission, Jayco, Sporting, Peak Sports and also Sporting Pulse. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, next week, Mark Bradkey is going to be my co-host, and make sure if you are in Sydney or there's any way you can get to the World Challenge Series next week involving the Australian rollers and the Australian gliders. The wheelchair basketball preparations for the Paralympic Games are heating up. Get to Ticket Direct website and you can get your tickets there. Until then, we'll see you next week on Countdown.